He leaned forward with his hands together. Sounds interesting to you, Mrs. Miller? She regarded his face. For a moment his face was narrow with deep cheekbone and a pointy nose. He seemed almost cartoonish. How do you know I have relationship prize you? Good, madame. Knowing things is my business. Like when you were 8 and let the neighbor boy see up your skirt. Quite the exhibitionist, he winked at her from across the room. Are you the devil? Hi, Warden. Why, madame, you flatter me. His voice had a delighted tone. I assure you, I am not, but I do represent him. The boss can't be expected to handle every matter that comes across his desk. Why are you here, and why me? Her voice was shaking. To help you, of course. He tried to sound reassuring. You know, another client of ours. So while I was into the area, I wanted to offer a service to you as well. But I don't know anyone whose spouse was killed. Exactly the point, interrupted. It wouldn't be any good if everyone knew about it. Mr. Sticks regarded the overwhelmed look on Katie's face for a moment before speaking. Let me cut to the chase, so to speak. We are offering to kill your husband and end this travesty you call a marriage. You, my dear, get the freedom you desire. Katie contemplated. But why was she contemplating this? Was life really that bad? No, she couldn't continue. She had to do something. Why not just leave? Why not devise him? She loved the house. She couldn't leave it. Was it really this easy? Yes, it is, he said, interrupting her. Doubts again. You can choose to not accept my proposition, Mrs. Miller. You are under no obligation. However, perhaps I should show you your future, should you decide to pass on my offer. He closed his eyes and raised his hand. A moment later, the vision started. There was a flash of light, and Katie woke in a large movie theater, sitting next to Mr. Sticks. He munched some popcorn, looking up at the screen. Katie began to ask what was happening, but Mr. Sticks shushed her and pointed to the screen. She moved down a couple of seats away from him. Being that close to him unnerved her. He chuckled to himself, for this was not the first person to squirm in his presence. He rather liked it. An image of the outside of her house flickered on the other screen. The camera panned and zoomed in onto the front door, which swung open as if the camera itself had opened it. Image of the living room flowed by, stopping on Marty. He stood there in a familiar blue suit. He was older, but wore the same stupid smile. His hair had more gray than brown, but beside that, he looked the same. He walked out the door front, heading off to work. Some things never change, Mr. Sticks laughed. The camera panned to the bedroom. Oh, here comes the good part. His grind made munching popcorn a little difficult, but he managed. On the screen, sitting on the bed, a haggard Katie stared at her feet, her hands rubbing over their laps. Tears rolled down her cheek as she began to sob. You never leave. His voice actually sounded pathetic. He still complained and talked about leaving, but year after year, no divorce, no leaving, and no freedom. Katie felt tears rolling down her cheeks. She looked so old on the screen compared to how Marty had looked. Her thing. And then there's this. Again, Mr. Sticks pointed at the screen. Katie glanced at Mr. Sticks and then looked back up to the screen to see her older self pick up the object from her lap. What was that? Bang. In horror, Katie watched her older form fall limp. Blood sprayed against the wall. All breath left her lungs. Panic struck her. As she began looking around for an exit, the tears spun. Her eyes could no longer focus. She needed to escape. Mr. Sticks snapped his finger, and they were back in the living room. Katie felt her head. Make sure she didn't have any new hole. She glared at Mr. Sticks. You bastard! How could you? That is the future you create, not me. I'm your only option to avoid that unfortunate fate. He tried to look sympathetic, but that emotion was lost on him again. So if I decide to accept your offer, I will avoid that future. You mean you won't swallow a gun barrel? That I can promise. What do you want? Why help me? The fight had been taken out of her. She could end up living the life she has seen on the line. What do you want? Why? What do you want? Why me? The fight had been taken out of her. She could end up living the life she has seen on the screen. Ah, the cost. It always comes down to that, doesn't it? Mr. Sticks crossed his legs and folded his hands into the price is your soul. He tapped his two fingers together, waiting for a response. You want my soul? I can't do that. You're not one of those religious sorts, are you? Mr. Sticks rolled his eyes. You might have the whole idea wrong. This is a game. A bet between rivals. Just because you win a hand, a poker doesn't mean you keep the cards, does it? He opened his folded hands, and a thing of trust. Your soul isn't really yours to lose. It is just a tally on a scoreboard for bragging rights between two immortals. Katie was at lost. All existence is a bet. Mind-blowing, I know. Believe it or not, we all work for the same team. Besides, what choice do you have? She took a deep breath and nodded her head. How do we do this? A great relief came over her. There was a light at the end of the tunnel and she could smell freedom. Here is your contract. He pulled out a scroll from inside his coat pocket. I know the scroll is a little old school, but we got them in bulk in the Dark Age. Besides, why not stick with a classic? He handed the scroll to her. To sign, just stick your fingers at the bottom. Katie pressed her finger on the bottom of the scroll. Red dot formed beneath her finger and began to spread. We pulled her finger away and noticed blood coming from the tip. Now, that wasn't so bad. Stretch Sticks rose from the chair. Anyone can fake a signature, that's why we require blood. He reached over and snatched the scroll from her hand. I will take that. Now let me give you a receipt. Receipt? Why not? Kitty was far beyond puzzled at this point, so she just decided to go with it. Of course, many people tend to pass this offer as a dream, so we offer a reminder they won't forget. I'm not going to end me or something like that, are you? Voice shook. What? He sounded truly surprised by her query. Madame, we are not animals. Of course you will receive a paper receipt. Pulled out a small square of paper, the same parchment as the scroll. One final question, Mrs. Miller. His hand showed it suffer. Tapped the pen against a small piece of paper on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being skinned alive with a butter knife, and 1 being sudden heart attack. Of course, these are just examples. Each death is customized for the individual. Katie paused to think, but Marty's face appeared in her mind. Smug smile. Let's go with a 3. She didn't want to be cruel after all. 3 seems like a reasonable number. Mr. Sticks scribbled 3 vertical lines, which crosses at the point, a quarter of the light. He circled the intersection, making it look like a crudely drawn bunch of wheat. Don't judge the artwork. We wouldn't want anything spelled out. No need for evidence to be found just laying around. He slowly smiled and handed a receipt to her. This matter shall be resolved for you. And next month, give or take a few days, we like to leave it at a little point of surprise. In the meantime, live as you normally would. Now you have a good day, Mrs. Miller. I imagine you and I will not speak again regarding this arrangement. And with a wink, he was gone. No need for pretense any longer. Using the door was no longer necessary. Katie decided to fake a headache that day, and phone and sick to her. A long bath was in order with her favorite candle. Over the next week, Katie didn't reflect much on what was to come. As Mr. Sticks said, she recalled it as more of a vague dream. Figment of her imagination, the receipt was the only reminder of that day, a marker declaring the reality of her decision. On the 8th, the gale began. That morning, she pulled the receipt with the 3 lines out. The tan color, along with the heavy height and unclean edge, made the paper feel hundreds of years old. Did he deserve to suffer? Wouldn't a single line have been sufficient? Kitty decided to make Marty's final day as pleasant as possible. She made its favorite meals and watched his stupid sci-fi show. She could stomach this for a few weeks. All the while her porcelain smile never faded. The evening of day 12, Marty decided to go to a poker game with some coworker. It was unusual for him to go out on a weeknight, but he seemed excited to get out of the house. This gave Caddy some time to relax and maybe get some laundry done. Caddy began putting away her laundry. She noticed that one of Marty's sockets has been mixed with her clothes. She opened his sock drawer to put away the stray, but corner of the drawer was a familiar piece of paper. Hid from the drawer, recognized the receipt. What was it doing in its drawer? She went to her jewelry box. She had originally kept the receipt, only to find it exactly where she had left it. What is this? She wondered. She unfolded the parchment. Sure enough, it was deep with scribble and marks similar to her own. At that precise moment, a voice from over her left shoulder whispered her ear. I see you found Marty's receipt. Caddy clutched her fist to her chest, but dared not turn around. She knew what was behind her. Gone were the blue suit and pencil mustache. Behind Katie stood what was once Mr. Sticks. A vision of her skeletal body warped tightly with brittle, dry skin, exposed bones, and fiery eyes. She dared not turn and face him. The vision told her as much. You see, Marty sought me out weeks before you, and I met. She felt Mr. Stick's bony finger on both of her shoulders. His long nails sharpened to jagged point. Tough luck he opted for 5 lines. Don't worry, my dear. I will honor my side of the agreement, and pretty much if he's soon enough. She could hear the crackling of his skin as he smiled. A deal is a deal. Now shall we begin? His bony finger dug into her shoulder. It is all right to scream. So this was the proposition from the creepypasta.org. The original author was Ebenezer Crowley. Ebenezer C. Crowley. Well, thank you everybody for listening to that. And this is the first time I do that.